Welcome back to the Two Common Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are here with Tom and Valter. I'm really excited about this episode as they are in the investing space and have a ton of information and knowledge in that they get to share, and I'm super excited about it. So, Tom and Valter, if you guys wouldn't mind kind of telling people a little bit about the space you're in and what your area of expertise is and how you got into it, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. So what we do is we help European investors or people in Europe go from zero to invested. Basically, if you've got somebody who's a busy professional who has a good income but who is super busy, doesn't have any time for investing, we teach them how to do index and ETF investing, passive investing, so that they can grow their wealth, get passive income, reach financial freedom. Okay. So there's this big issue in Europe where few people invest. It's not like the States. It's much less popular. So there's this big lack of knowledge around investing, and we fill that gap. And maybe so very briefly, I started my career on Wall Street, so I have a background in finance from the US side. Then I moved back to Europe, and I co-founded a pension fund, and there Walter was the first employee I hired. We did that for a while, and then afterwards we split off to do our own thing with online education. So maybe Walter can introduce himself in a few words.
Yeah, my name is Valter, and as Tom said, I was the first employee that he hired, and then we worked together for about 4 years. And then somehow I started an affiliate marketing side hustle, and it just somehow ended up that Tom left the company, and then a year later I left the company, and then we just ended up together again. And so it's been a hell of a ride.
That's awesome. I love that. Especially, I'd like I said, John and we connected as well, and it's interesting how our paths converged. And I think I just love having partnerships because you can bounce ideas off of people. You can do things. I feel like the growth can be faster. You get different perspectives. So tell us about you guys. Like when things took off, you said you had some affiliate. Is how you started out, Volter. And then obviously you and Tom got together. When did things kind of take off for you guys in your business and what you're doing in your space?
So I mean, everything started with the investment company that we built. It was this pension kind of management business. So Walter and I, we built the investment systems and everything else, and we were going on all these seminars to companies and pitching people on why they need to invest for their retirement. And in that process, we saw that there was a big lack of knowledge across Europe around how to invest and how to do these things. So over time, I was getting kind of burnt out with running a regulated financial company. It's just a lot of stress. So I wanted to do something else, and I had this in the back of my mind. So there were a couple of moments. Like one day, I met somebody who he was a partner in there's this company called the iPhone Photography School, which is based out of Latvia, where we are, which has done tremendously well. They do like 8 figures, something like that a year, just teaching iPhone photography. And I met these guys. I mean, they're younger than me. These are young guys, very smart guys. And I was like, okay, like it's crazy that they're just teaching people online and it works so well. So that was really inspiring. And then as my time with the investment company was winding down, I started reading Russell's books and got into the whole ClickFunnels thing, and so that's kind of the journey of how we started out. We basically started out following Russell's perfect webinar blueprint, except we kind of adapted it for our market and perhaps for European sensibilities. But maybe, Walter, you have another perspective on this.
Yeah, no. For me, the story was a bit similar in a way that I always knew that I don't want to try and climb the corporate ladder, but I want to get into entrepreneurship. And I have a friend who's doing affiliate marketing since something like 2015, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And it just happened that I managed to get on some projects together with him, and he's spending something like 6 figures a day on ad spend. So it was just it was insane to watch his campaigns, and that somehow got me interested in marketing. And I just tried to learn as much as I can. And yeah, it was just by accident that we ended up together with Tom after we split with the pension management company. And yeah, and for me, since I had the background in finance and interested in marketing as well, it just ended up being a great mix.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool how you had the friend that was able to show you in your environment, like, hey, this is possible to be successful in, and they're leading the way on that. And I can see how that would be very inspiring to basically want to get involved in and learn how it's all done. So that's really cool. So do you guys recall how it is that you came across Russell's like books and things? Was it like an ad, or were you a part of one of the challenges, or maybe FHL?
I had somehow just heard the name ClickFunnels. And then even back at the pension company, at one point, I paid a digital marketing consultant to set up a campaign for us on ClickFunnels, and it was partly for business reasons, but it was also partly because I just wanted to learn how it all worked. So this guy came in and he helped us set up ClickFunnels for the pensions business and stuff. And through that, I got familiar with the tools. So later, it wasn't scary. I knew I could do it on my own as well. After we started our own project, I don't know, Walter, do you remember when you heard about like Russell or all
Yeah,
that?
it was when you gave me the book .com Secrets.
Okay.
So you were the one who introduced me to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, and I have to say, like, first of all, I always want to give this disclaimer because I think people who are getting into the space, they get these unrealistic expectations. Digital marketing and selling online is not some kind of magical cure for everything. So we've been building this business for several years, and we could still probably be making more money if we worked for the pension business than here, after all the expenses are covered. That said, at the same time, Russell really has done a really wonderful job laying out the blueprint for how to do this. So if you have knowledge to share, if you have expertise that is kind of rare and that not many people have, and if there's a market that needs it, then you can take all these processes that Russell teaches and everything, and you can internalize them, and through a lot of work, it works. Like if you put in the work and use the systems, and if you have good knowledge and a great market, if it all comes together, it really does work.
I love that. You guys did mention much. I appreciate you guys being honest. A lot of people say, hey, I get into entrepreneurial space and it's all going to be money. We're going to make lots of this money. And that's kind of the vision or goal there. And when you're an entrepreneur, you take on the risk too. And if you don't make money, there's expenses, the overhead. Just kind of piggybacking on that, what's kind of your goal for the year for you guys? What are you trying to do with clients, or like a dollar figure, or like your business growth? What's kind of your goal you guys are focused on for the year? And what do you see as the obstacle and or the obstacles that you guys are trying to overcome to hit that goal this year?
So both of us have three priorities. We're not allowed to have more than three. So maybe Walter, you can start with yours, and then I'll.
I love that.
Yeah. We it kind of came up with that because we realized at one point that, if you don't have your priorities straight, then you're just all over the place and you can't really get anything done. So focus is super important. So for this year, I'm in general mostly in charge of media buying and internal operations, and I actually used to run a radio show on the national radio. It was like a pretty cool podcast in personal finance. So my three priorities for this year is to try and build out affiliate partnerships, just to basically find people with whom we could, build some nice synergies and help each other out. The second priority is to launch the podcast. I quit doing the podcast with the national radio because, well, since it's the national radio, there are a lot of restrictions of what you can and cannot say in regards advertising and so forth. So I kind of took the painful step of breaking that relationship off, and we're about to launch our own show, hopefully in the next few months. And then the last thing is just keeping all the back office in check, so that Tom can focus more on the sales aspect.
Yeah. So and yeah, and then on my side, the big three is we're making a huge push into YouTube, um, which a couple of years ago we started, and we actually got a bit of traction. We were doing well, but then last year we were upgrading our whole program, and we totally let it slide. But we kind of noticed that even when we weren't posting, we were growing and getting views, and so we decided, okay, let's capitalize on that. So we're making a big push into YouTube. That's one focus for this year. Then the second focus is, of course, ads, because you have to keep making new ads, and it's just something you have to pay a lot of attention to. And then the third one is we're going to launch a low ticket offer. So we're working on that as well.
That's really cool. I love those priorities between my top three were the podcast, the YouTube, and then the low ticket offer. I am curious to know, first and foremost, what you're thinking that low ticket offer might be, but then also what it is that you guys offer currently to your audience.
Sure. So maybe it makes sense to start with the second question, actually. So we have basically one flagship product, which is we have a training program that takes you from A to Z. So if you know nothing about investing, you can come in, you go through this 6-week program, and you're investing, and you know what you're doing, and you understand taxes and brokerages and basically everything that you need. And that's like a 1,500 euro sort of program, which for most of Europe is, you could call high ticket. I know in the US you wouldn't call it high ticket unless it's like 3,000, but salaries are lower, so it's kind of the lower end of high ticket for Europe. And there's of course a few limitations with that. One is that there's a lot of people you cannot help, and the other limitation is just building the lifetime customer value. Russell teaches the Ascension ladder. But in the finance space, in the investing space, it's very difficult to build the high ticket product. We haven't quite figured out how to build a real high ticket in the back. Like if you don't have a license to give investment advice or manage somebody's money, then the question is, what am I going to charge somebody 5,000 euros for or 10,000 euros for? Now, we have some ideas. I think there are some ways for some audiences where we could provide a lot of value through coaching and things like that. But we figured, okay, we're not super clear right now about high ticket. So let's go in the other direction. Let's see if we can do low ticket, and then bring in a bigger audience of people through low ticket, which is more accessible, and then ascend them over time. And there actually, we have a couple different products that we're going to try. One is focused on like making your first investments, and the other one is more like personal finance.
I love that. That's one of the things John and I talked a lot about, is high ticket versus low ticket, and just like I said, lifetime value, and making that for you guys. What are you, obviously you talked about some of the regulatory things in Europe. I know it's totally different. I got family in Ireland. It's totally different, with the euro. I get it. What are some of the hurdles you guys are finding now, just as a program and getting things launched and kind of trying to overcome for the year? What are some of the hurdles you guys are trying to overcome for the year?
If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.
So I think actually we've done well overcoming a lot of them, but yeah, there is a bunch of hurdles that, like, there's a lot of people who start out as financial influencers and then they kind of run into them. One is, of course, that here in Europe there's a different tax system in every country, so we actually have spent tens of thousands of euros on various tax advisors and doing tax research and stuff like that. Which is quite difficult if you're targeting multiple countries. It's much easier to just start out in Germany or start out in Italy or whatever. And then, of course, I mean, the European financial regulators are quite strict. I mean, you really can't give investment advice. And some new financial influencers kind of play fast and loose with that. Of course, you might sell consulting and tell people what ETFs to buy. But if you grow big enough, you're going to get caught and it's not going to be good. So from day one, we knew we didn't want to do that. So these are kind of things that, like, if you're in the space, like, we want to be here for a long time, so we want to do it right. So these are challenges to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand how difficult and frustrating that would be, having all of the multiple different countries that you're trying to serve, and how there's a different rule set for everyone and everything. So to take it back to the marketing side of things, how is it that you guys are currently getting traffic to your offers? I know you mentioned things like paid ads, YouTube, and podcasting, but what's currently working for you guys?
I'll let Valter take this one.
Yeah, the paid ads are definitely in charge of, I would say, at least generating at least 90% of the traffic. At least 85, but it's closer to 90. And it's mostly Meta and Google. So those are the big ones. And we've kind of really recently started generating traffic from the organic channels as well, because as Tom mentioned before, we spent most of the last year updating our program, so we kind of we didn't pay enough attention on the social channels and creating nice engaging content. So I think that's also one of the this year's priorities for Tom with YouTube, is to kind of get the organic channels going and also generate a lot bigger portion of traffic from those, because as everyone knows, then the ad costs are ever increasing and they're not going away anytime soon, and that's also hurting the business cash flow a bit.
So it's one of those things. Like, I always like to add those disclaimers for any newbies who are watching this. For example, the 2 Comma Club, it's a wonderful award. It's very motivating, so I'm all for it. At the same time, sometimes people sell the vision that you get this 2 Comma Club award and you're a millionaire from the business. But of course, this is a top line award. This is for revenue. And I would say for most businesses who get the 2 Comma Club award based on ad spend, okay, I don't know if it's most, but for a lot of them, the actual net profit is a pretty small fraction of that. Okay, now if you're running ads to a high ticket funnel, it can be a bigger fraction. If you're running ads to $1,000 offer, it's probably a pretty small fraction, because it is very hard to get a big ROI running like webinar ads. Like, usually the margins are quite tight. So then you have to figure out how to really scale that thing.
Yeah, that just goes into my next question. Like, as you guys are obviously with paid ads and with YouTube and now with the podcast, which we're super excited about your podcast, so we'll definitely want to hear more about that and you guys get that going. How are you guys nurturing those leads? Obviously, a lot of people pay for ads. We talk to a lot of folks, and paid ads, I get it. But once you get those paid ads, or people kind of coming to your site or checking things out, how are you guys nurturing those and kind of making them, from somebody who's interested in what you guys are doing investing to somebody who becomes a client? Like, how are you guys closing that gap?
Yep. So like, mostly, like, we use the perfect webinar as like the most direct method. So we took Russell's system, we adapted it. I know Russell was like, I remember he was like joking about how he gives people the perfect webinar and then they change it, and like, it's the perfect webinar, you're not supposed to change it. That said, we've been optimizing it for years and trying to make it match better with European sensibilities, because I mean, Russell is very forward with the selling, and I think maybe it works a little better with Americans than with Europeans. So that's the main thing. And then, of course, people end up in our mailing list, and over time, the mailing list has become more and more important. So yeah, nurture mails and sales campaigns over the mailing list. I don't know, Valter, if there's anything you want to add to that.
Well, maybe, but that we don't really have data on it. But I'm sure that most of the people who see our ads, they also end up being followers in social media, so they also consume the organic content there.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful for sure. I know that a lot of people, especially nowadays with how populated the online space is, they like to click on the profiles that are doing the ads and kind of like get a feel for people with their organic content before they actually go through the funnel. At least that's been something I've seen. With that said,
yeah, and that's actually one of the things that we noticed when we just started out back in, was it 2021, that we didn't really have any social presence, and we were running ads, and we were doing really poorly with sales. And just as soon as we, created some Instagram accounts, YouTube accounts, started posting some videos, then it really helped with the social proof, and we could see that sales started improving as well. So that's a really big thing nowadays that you shouldn't underestimate, for sure.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. So that's let's talk about the funnel that you guys are using. You talk about this webinar that you're doing. Is it just a simple opt-in page and then it leads to a paid webinar, or is it like a master class, or how do you guys kind of run that?
So it's a free Zoom workshop. So it really, like, I would recommend anybody who's interested in webinars really to definitely get the perfect webinar training from Russell. I think it is very good. And like, we have some tweaks, but it's the same thing. So you get to a lander, you register for it. We do it live. Few people do the webinars live these days, it feels like, but like every week we're doing them like clockwork. Eventually we might try evergreen, but there's various reasons why we're still doing it live. So there's some emails before the webinar to get people to show up. Then you have the webinar, then you have the replay and everything else. A pretty classic kind of approach.
I love that. I think like you guys are doing it live. I'm just curious. You guys asking questions when you're doing it live? I think I just get so much. People can really get to know you, but also get some value out of it. Are you guys doing a Q&A with your
Yep.
webinar at the end?
Yep.
I love that. That's one of the things you can't do with Evergreen. You hit play and then that's it. And then people, like, they have questions. They're like, hey, I can't answer my questions. Can't get answered unless I call somebody and then do that process. So
yeah, no, it is funny. We talk about this a lot. I mean, so I've done something like 100 webinars so far, and
awesome.
When I stand there in front of the camera, I'm doing the webinar. It's like sometimes it is like, okay, why am I doing this again? But then again, like, every time I remind myself I'm here to help people. And also, like, what was really helpful to me. So I've done sales before, and I've also, when we were setting up a sales team for this project, I took sales calls with clients. And so I had the experience that, like, you can talk to like 30 people in the same week and you're going through the same script and talking about the same things. So my sales guys are supposed to do like whatever number of calls in a week. I can do it once, right? I can show up for a webinar. So that's how I think about it. And I do think for the attendees, it is kind of an extra value that it's live and they can interact and get their questions answered.
But at the same time, still, well, we've done a webinar almost every week for the past 3 years, so we've kind of nailed it. And because of that, not a lot of people, but we always get some people who think that it's an evergreen pre-recorded webinar, because we just know everything by heart, and we know what goes where, and it's like really polished live webinar.
We have to add lots of liveness proofs and showing the date and things, because otherwise people just assume, like, we've had people who purchased and they said, oh, of course it was recorded, right? I'm like, no, it was not recorded. But yeah,
that's awesome. That sounds like a really good compliment to get when people are telling you that it's evergreen like that, and it's not, because obviously, like you said, you're crushing it. You're answering all their questions before they're about to ask it, and you're doing all those right things. That's perfect. So I know that a lot of people, when they first start, are kind of in this space where they're trying to ask the question, like, what should I do in order to, guide traffic to my offer, and how should I present it, and all those things. So my question to you guys is, how did you land on the perfect webinar as the thing that you guys were going to commit to and go for?
Trying to look back into history. Well, I think I kind of knew what was what the product was, what the solution was that people needed, that I could give them. I knew it was going to be a premium one because it includes a lot to actually get people those results. I mean, there's support and everything else. And so I knew that if I wanted to sell it, let's say for €1,000 or more, then it would not really work off of like a VSL or just a sales page. We would need that connection. So it seemed natural. And then of course I was Googling around and like looking at various webinar frameworks, and I found Russell's, and that was super helpful. But honestly, like if I were talking to somebody who's starting out, and especially somebody without a lot of business experience, I would approach it differently. Sometimes, like for example, I was in the Facebook group, the ClickFunnels Facebook group, and sometimes you see people asking questions about these advanced techniques, like the webinar is pretty advanced, and you can really tell that like this is a complete beginner, like with no business experience. And I think it's a very heavy lift. It's like you're stepping in the gym and you're lifting like something super heavy, even though you haven't done any training. So I think like if you're a complete beginner with no business experience, no presentation, nothing, I think starting with organic, starting with like a bit of creating content, seeing what resonates, getting people to engage, maybe selling some coaching one-on-one through DMs or calls, whatever. I think that's a lot more likely to succeed. Because here's another fun fact. So the first webinar I launched, it was actually in Latvian, in our home country, in Latvia. And in Latvia, I was already kind of a mini celebrity. A lot of people knew me, so it did well. And that allowed the business to take off. But then when Valter and I, when we did the first English language webinar, we spent 5,000 euros on ad spend and we got 0 sales.
Oh,
and then the next webinar, we got maybe 1 or 2 sales. And we were losing money for quite a while. And we were paying like 20 or 25 euros per lead in ad costs, which was a lot, right? And yeah, even with our experience, it was a hard lift. So if somebody without any business or marketing or any of that experience goes into it, I would not advise this is the first step.
I get it. No, one of the things I like, and I want to kind of change gears because John and I both love finding the financial world. Like I said, we both sold, previously for big banks and did investments. I love that. You guys, I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think a lot of people have read that. That really changed, not so much about investing, but my mindset. And that got me into investing. And then it once in turned into real estate. And it really changed my life, to be honest. I just followed the principles of the book, and it really changed my life. Knowing that people don't have that background knowledge, even in the States or where you guys are in Europe, I think there's such value there. I know you guys, I'm sure you guys believe in what you're doing. What is the hurdle you are finding to get people? Because you have a lot of the governments have pensions, those kind of things. It's not as common as it is, say, in other areas like the States. What are you guys doing? Like, obviously, you guys are bridging that gap. But as you find it's a big hurdle or a heavy lift to do that, especially like you said, with the time to do the English version versus your home country version was totally different. So how are you guys overcoming that, and how's that being received? Is it slow, or is it becoming certain areas you notice things are better, certain countries are better? I'll just be interested in your guys' take on that.
Valter, maybe you want to take this one?
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer because there's a group of people for whom it's really a financial literacy matter, that they don't really know why they should invest and how would that benefit their lives, and they look at stock market as being this casino where you can just gamble away your money, which can be true in some cases, but not when it comes to like long-term passive investing. For those people, like we know cases where people came to our webinars like 5, 6, 7 times before they made the decision to join, because it's like really big decision for them, because they have to go through this mindset shift sort of. So that's one part of the equation, that you just kind of have to give people information until they kind of realize how investing can change their lives. Yeah. And then there's the other half for whom, let's say, when you compare long-term passive investing in Europe versus America, in America it's a lot simpler. You can open a brokerage account, you can buy this QQQ or SPY index fund and just be done with it. But when it comes to Europe, as Tom said, there are 30 plus different tax systems. In one country, you should prefer local brokerage over international brokerage. In other countries, you prefer accumulating funds over distributing funds and so forth. And there are a lot of people who follow American investment advice just watching videos on YouTube and reading like Dave Ramsey's books. And they think that investing is easier than it actually is here in Europe. And for those people, I think they just kind of have to hit a wall until they find us and realize that they actually need help to get started with this thing that seems so easy when you Google it online. So I think those are the two biggest ones that comes to my mind. Maybe you have something to add, Tom.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that really there's this issue of kind of fear that a lot of people have, and it ties into what Walter said about like people who come to the webinar for 5 times before they take action. People don't usually say they're afraid of investing, but I think I certainly know that I have been afraid, especially in the early days. I certainly remember being afraid as a professional investor when I was first investing millions of euros for clients. I was really afraid. I didn't want to screw it up. I didn't want to lose money for the clients, and I knew the market goes down sometimes, right? And I think like if somebody's investing their personal, like in their life savings, they feel a lot of fear around that, and so that is something, that we work with all the time to help you kind of change your mindset and have this Zen attitude that, of course, the market goes up and down, and we just keep riding the waves, because if you have a good strategy over the long term, you will almost certainly do great.
It's awesome. One of the things that I see. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I was going to say what I'm really interested in hearing is kind of the obstacles around how it is that you guys tackle that fear, that these individuals have, and kind of walking through how to get over that, because it is really a mindset thing at the end of the day. And I know that's one of the biggest obstacles in the investing space. So how are you guys helping people to change their mindset around that, or get informed to be able to understand that there are ways to learn about it safely and things of that nature?
I think storytelling, telling our stories, telling other people's stories, like case studies of people who've been really successful with this, market case studies. I like to tell this story of like, what if you had a time machine and you could travel back in time to 1999? That was the dot-com bubble. Stocks were super expensive. And I always ask, well, was that a good time to start investing? And from today's perspective, you would say, no, that was a horrible time. The market was about to crash. It was really bad, right? But actually, if you started in 1999 and you realize, no, it looks scary, I'm just going to wait for the perfect moment when I feel confident, you would have made zero money, because like between 1999 and today, there was never a perfect moment. There was never a year in which everybody was like, yes, the market, there's no way the market's going to fall. It's wonderful. It's amazing. Yeah, definitely buy right now. Like that never happens. There's always people who are saying, this is not good. Something's going to break. There's a bubble, whatever, right? Whereas people who started in 1999 and just kept investing, just kept buying, they did great, despite the dot-com bubble, despite the big financial crisis and everything else. So, stories like that and personal stories is what we try and use.
I love that. I love that. That's good. That was my question as well. Thanks a lot, John, for stealing that. I appreciate it. I think you guys, that's one of the things we talked about people all the time in our coaching, but also in investing. And there's always fear. I think we talk about that a lot, but there's fear for also making no decision at all. And what's the ramifications if you don't start investing? I know you guys plug that a lot on your social media stuff. If you start younger, compounding interest, I know you guys plug that, how the time versus your investment and how that works. I think it's critical. I think the education part, I think that's really where people, at least they go on YouTube, they can watch some videos, but the nuts and bolts, like you said, they'll have some failures and start getting into it and be lost. How are you guys from an education standpoint? Like, I know once you guys give a value, what's kind of your value ladder for folks, if you don't mind us asking, like walk us through what that looks like?
You mean in terms of the products we're selling?
Yeah, what you guys are doing, how you're walking people through the value ladder. Obviously, you're introducing something new in most countries. This is totally new or foreign, obviously. How are you guys introducing that? And what's the value ladder as you kind of give them value and help them understand how to invest?
Yeah, so that's why we're working on this low ticket offer for this year, because right now it's very simple. It's the webinar and it's basically our flagship program, and that's it. So for the people who are ready, like who are busy professionals, they know they want to be investing, they don't know how. Like it's a great solution, and they get into it, and that's wonderful. But then there's of course a group of people who are maybe not ready, but who would like to learn something, and for them we don't have anything yet, but in a month or two we will. So we're building out that value ladder. And then the other thing we are thinking about is like, what is the high ticket thing that we can do? Because like one of the things we really focus on is we don't want to sell something that we don't believe in. So we don't want to just like, okay, 10,000 euro coaching package and whatever, and then there's nothing there. We're really proud that, for example, we have a 4.8 out of 5 Trustpilot rating, because like people who do buy it, they're really happy with it, they love the value. So we're asking ourselves, okay, what can we create which might cost 5 or 10,000 euros, but for the right person they would rate it 5 out of 5 on Trustpilot, and they would not ask for a refund even if we let them take a refund for 30 days or whatever, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out, and we have some ideas. Like I think it's a question of which part of our market has the kind of money and for whom we can be helpful enough. But that's more for maybe the end of the year or next year. First, the low ticket offer.
And I think also the biggest value that we can actually give to people is not the pure information, but the confidence that you actually know what you're doing, because that's also a really big thing. Is everyone can find information online about how to buy an ETF, but the confidence usually is this thing that's lacking. Because imagine if you start investing, and imagine 10, 15, 20 years down the line, if your portfolio grows to, let's say, 6 or 7 figures, and you don't actually know what you're doing, you just invested in one ETF 20 years ago, and you don't really understand if you're in a safe brokerage, et cetera, then that at that moment it can get really scary. So I think the confidence is a bit undervalued thing when people think about investing, that they rather look at all the technical aspects, but I think being confident in your decisions is one of the most important factors.
What would be one of those things that you guys share, like one specific tactic that you use to kind of help people gain that confidence when they're getting started?
Well, we talk. So Walter and I, we go to the same fitness trainer at the gym, and he's always talking about how today everybody wants the shortcut, and here's the 15-minute miracle that will give you passive income for 30 years. But at the gym, it doesn't exist. You have to go there and you have to work out and you have to do it on a regular basis. And with confidence in investing, I also think there's no real shortcut. I mean, it doesn't take that long. It's not that hard. But I think confidence comes from knowing what you're doing. And to know what you're doing, you do have to learn. Okay, I know it's not a popular word these days. I know copywriters tell me, don't say people will have to learn. They will gain things. They will discover things, right? But I mean, you do have to learn. Like what's a stock? What's a bond? What are the risks? What are the benefits? How often does the market go down? How often does it go up? How long are the periods with the losses? What happens if you keep investing as it goes down and up? Like there are these things. Like it's a process, and when we take people through that process, when they internalize this knowledge, then they gain confidence. It's not because of a 30-second kind of really inspiring story that I told, but it's because like it adds up over time. They have the knowledge and they gain confidence with that, plus experience, which takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, that eludes my next question. This is something I love talking about. Just really interested because John and I as well, we came from a financial background, having, jobs, working for a company, corporate America. And then we went in and started our own business like you guys. there's definitely some fear there. Like you said, people investing have fear. What was kind of that transition when you guys put both feet in? How did you know that was time? Or, I mean, obviously you guys don't seem like big risk takers. But I was just thinking, what bridged the gap from you guys going, investing, working for companies, and doing your own thing? Obviously, Bolt, you tell a little bit about you being an entrepreneur mindset, kind of having that idea. But what bridged that gap for you guys to transition to do your own thing?
Yeah, Walter, maybe you can start.
Um, I know, as I mentioned before, I kind of always knew that I wanted to do my own thing, and like the I would say that the thing that really helped me was my just building up a big safety cushion. Let's call it that. I just had saved up quite a reasonable chunk of money, and I just knew that I can afford to take a bigger risk and see if this thing works out. And if I don't get any income, that's fine. I can survive for up to a year, and then worst case scenario, I'll just find a new job. And I was somehow emotionally at the point in my life where I wasn't like the company that I was working for. It wasn't that corporate. It was on the way to becoming corporate. It was like slowly growing at that moment, or I would say at that moment it started growing a lot faster. And I just kind of felt that this all these corporate politics and the corporate vibe is creeping in, and I somehow just felt like that I need a change in my life. And it just so happened that I had big safety cushion, and then there was an opportunity to partner up with Tom. And since we had worked together for 4 years before, I didn't really have any doubts or fears that he might run away with the cash or whatever. So a lot of things just added up, and it was quite an easy decision for me.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the I think the safety cushion is really important. People underestimate that. In general, how important it is to, like, a lot of people say, "Oh, all this slow saving and investing, it's so slow, it's so boring. I'm just gonna make a business and get rich that way." But like, if you don't do the slow and boring thing, you're not gonna have capital, and it's gonna be very difficult to get your business off the ground if you have no capital. Obviously, today with side hustles and everything, you can do things, but even so, like, yeah, if you have at least 20, 30, 50 grand in the bank, you're in a much better position to take a risk and try and go out on your own. And then the other thing is, like, if I were, for example, advising my son, who's now 7 years old, but okay, let's say he's thinking about starting a business, I would say, well, the best time to start a business is once you have externally validated proof that you are good at some things. And I don't mean like good grades at university. I mean, professionally good. So, like, I know, excuse me, I know a few people who came out of college and did a business, created a business and became successful, but they are the exception. I think it makes a lot more sense for most people. You get out of college, you go find a job, perhaps at a small company or at a really ambitious company, where you will get responsibility, you will get the opportunity to do different kinds of things, to do challenging things, and then you work super, super hard. You become the best in the team. Like, you become as good as you possibly can. Ideally, you should gain some marketing skills. You should gain some basic finance, accounting skills, maybe some public speaking, some negotiation skill. Like, if you can get these fundamental things that are so valuable for entrepreneurship, if you can learn them on somebody else's dime, that is really wonderful. And so in my case, I really wasn't scared at all, because I mean, I was a bit older at that point than Walter. For me, it was an even smaller risk, because I'd been a CEO of this company, which was funded by other people. So I was a co-founder, but I didn't have to put in money. So I saw that I could build this one company up when other people funded it. And so I took the risks on their dime, and it worked out. And it gave me confidence. Okay, now we can put in our own money and create something on our own.
That's really cool. I love hearing how you were able to, do the necessary things while still getting paid for it. And I feel like that's the big hurdle that a lot of newer entrepreneurs run into is like, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go full gung ho with this. I'm going to jump off the deep end, take a leap of faith. And there goes all my pay. And so I don't know how I'm going to survive now. And it's like, what advice would you give to those individuals who have done that and have already taken that leap of faith, but are trying to get that external validation like you're talking about? Like, what steps would you recommend that they take in order to get solid proof that they are good at what they're claiming to be good at?
Actually, if I can take a step back before that,
Yeah, by all means.
like for the people who are still at a job, like not all jobs will allow for this, but in many cases, if you're proactive, you can get these opportunities to learn, especially in smaller companies. Even if you're, let's say, just an accountant, I'm not looking down at accountants. I'm just saying if that's your job, if that's your role. But if you go to the owner of the business and say, look, I've got some ideas for client acquisition or marketing or whatever, especially in smaller businesses, a lot of the time they will give you a chance, and you can work on projects outside of your job description as long as your job gets done, right? So I would try and be as ambitious as possible. There's this whole movement on Reddit, like anti-work and stuff. Just do the bare minimum. Don't do more than what they're paying you for. And I can see that if you have no ambitions, but like if you want to gain skills and maybe do something on your own, like you actually want to push to get more responsibilities, to do more, not for the sake of the employer, but for your own sake, to get those skills. But then if you've made the jump and you don't have the proof, I guess Alex Hormozy's advice makes a lot of sense to me. If you're confident in your skill, you could do it for some people either for free, although that is maybe a kind of dangerous, or for cheap, but with the deal that, okay, if this works out, you give me a testimonial. I think it could be a good way to start. I don't know, Valter, if you have other ideas.
I think you summed it up quite well. But for those people who are still at work, I think one indication that you might be good is that if you're climbing the career ladder quite fast, it kind of means that your bosses are trusting you with more and more important things.
Yeah.
And that might be an indication that you might be somewhat good. But if you're struggling to get a promotion, well, then it might be that you're not as good as you think, and you should get back and learn some additional skills.
Or you should go and interview, because if you can get a promotion by moving to another company, then maybe your boss is an idiot. But if your boss will not promote you and you can't get a better job anywhere else, you're probably not as hot as you think. Okay, so you might need to work on your skills.
I love that. That's a solid advice. I think if you're an employee or you're looking to start a business, both those things are solid advice. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I think there's three things he recommended: is to learn sales, to learn how to lead people, and then how to learn manage your finances. So I went into careers in all three of those areas, just like Rich Dad did, or sorry, Robert Kiyosaki did. And I learned sales. I didn't know sales, so took a job to learn sales. I took a job to learn how to manage people. I took a job to learn finances, with a corporate company. And I learned all those things, and I was able to quickly apply them to my business, and that it helped us grow leaps and bounds. I didn't just come in with entrepreneur mindset and said, hey, I want to get rich and make a business. I learned these skills through corporate America, which I was grateful for. That I didn't get rich doing those jobs, but I learned those skills, which were invaluable, which in turn created wealth for me. So I love what you guys are saying is, hey, the world's going to give you feedback, good or bad. Like you said, if you're not doing well at your job, your boss is going to give you feedback, unless he's an idiot, and you might want to look for a better job. But anytime I took a different job, I always made more money. People saw the worth and value in me and the skills I had. Not that I was trying to do corporate, but it definitely earned more money than I was also to excel. But I learned those key skills that I use every day in my business now with negotiating and with sales and leadership. So I piggyback what you guys have to say 100%. I agree. And it just gives you confidence as you go into your business. So I love what you guys are doing there. That being said, talk about skills. What is for you guys, each of you guys, what's your unique ability? You can't be good at everything. What's like the one thing you say, hey, when I think of Valter or Tom, what's your unique ability or your superpower that you guys have that you're able to give in your business and to others?
So I'll let Walter think about it. In the meantime, I have my answer ready.
He lets you off
Uh,
easy.
so this is something I used to struggle with a lot, and so it's actually part of what I teach these days. So there's two ways that people look at how you can develop highly valuable skills. Um, One approach is to become extremely good at one thing. Like you have a world-class pianist. The only way you can become a world-class pianist is by practicing up to 8 hours a day for years, and that's the only way. Probably the same goes for playing golf or something. But I think with entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily like that. I think good entrepreneurs often are very good at many different skills, even if they are not experts, world class experts at any one of them. Especially in the early stages, when you're building a company, you're basically a one man orchestra, right? You can't afford to hire everybody. So I think actually like what has helped me is that at different points in life, I've focused on different things. Now, if you try to do everything at once, you will never get good at anything. But there was a time in my life when I was just studying physics really hard, so that helped me figure out math and everything else. Then there was the Wall Street period when it was all about money. I was working on Wall Street. Then there was a period when I was just writing books and teaching salsa and stuff, where I learned other kinds of skills, right? And then, for example, when I was the co-founder of this investment business, I had to write the business plan. I had writing skills. I had to pitch investors. I had public speaking skills. I had to put together the financial models. I had the experience from Wall Street. I was not the best in the world at any of those, but I was very competent at all of them. And for like somebody who's building a new company, that can be super valuable. I can recommend a book called Range. I forget the name. I forget the name of the author, but it's Range. Why generalists? There was something about how generalists win in a world of
David Epstein.
yeah. David Epstein. Yeah, I really love it because so many people push this idea that you just need to find your passion and follow it and just laser focused, and it can work in some fields. But I think it's also fine to be good at many things. Just make sure you're getting good at them instead of trying to learn 5 skills at the same time. That doesn't work. But if you spend 3 years on marketing, 3 years like doing sales, 3 years, like you can get good at multiple things sequentially. Okay, so that's my answer. Walter, how about you?
My answer is actually really similar because I've never been like excellent at any one thing, but I've been quite okay in many things, and I have this uh, great ability that I'm really a fast learner. You know, it's like a cheesy answer, but I actually believe that I'm quite a fast learner. And I also have a background in finance. I studied finance in university. Then I worked as a financial analyst, both at one corporate finance company, then at the pension fund, and then back in the pension fund while Tom was supervising me and giving me tasks. I had an opportunity to also be part of compliance, be part of marketing, be part of sales. I've also done, like, I was never really good with like technical skills back in university, so I always volunteered to do the presentations, so I built up my public speaking skills there as well. And I think just the experience working at the pension fund with Tom was the thing that helped me to develop like multiple skills, because I think it was like for the first year it was like it was just the two of us, like the two employees doing pretty much everything, and then the company slowly grew.
Today it has what, I don't know, must be 170 to 100.
Something like that, yeah. But back in the day, it was
Wow.
literally we were splitting everything between the two of us, and I think yeah, similarly as Tom said, I couldn't say that I have one super skill, but if I had to name one, then it would be that I'm quite a fast learner. I would like to believe, at least.
That's great. I love that. It really gives you the fast track to being able to pick up a lot of different skills, and that is essentially a superpower in its own, which is great. So as we're wrapping up the podcast here, is there any place that you guys want to recommend that anybody who's listening can go to either get involved in your program or reach out to you personally if they have questions or just follow along with your journey? That'd be great to share.
Yeah, so I think especially if any of your listeners are based in Europe, that includes the UK or the European Union or Switzerland, anywhere in Europe, you might enjoy my YouTube channel. So you can just look for Tom Crosshill on YouTube or look me up on Instagram. So I think those would be the two main places. Yep. I don't know, Walter, if you have any other pointers.
No, I'm mostly focusing on our local Latvian market with my social channels. So I'd say these two are just follow Tom.
Unless you speak Latvian, in
Unless
which
you
case
speak Latvian, then you can look me up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys' time today. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I feel like anybody who listens is going to get a ton of value from this. So appreciate your time.
It was fun
Great.
chatting. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks.